We have Alec Palmer with Momentum, Emilee Fails with the Washington football team, and Josh Lavallee with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So Emilee, do you want to start off and just introduce yourself? A quick introduction. Emilee is a Point Park graduate, so honored to be here speaking with another Point Park alum today.
Yep. Hey guys, I actually graduated Point Park just in 2019. I majored in advertising and public relations, minored in graphic design, but I am currently, I started as a content designer with Washington football team last season, but this next season I'll actually be our team photographer, but still helping out a little bit with graphic design for our social media. But yeah, so currently here in DC with the team, trying to enjoy the off season that doesn't really exist in football, but yeah.
So welcome, Emilee. Alec, you're up.
Hey guys, my name is Alec Palmer. I'm with Momentum, the sports media and branding company started by Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher Trevor Bauer. Been here for about 2 years now, graduated from Baldwin-Wallace University up in Cleveland, Ohio. Some of you guys might know there. Actually graduated there with an accounting degree and my MBA. And then, went completely the opposite way. Could not be further from accounting and in the boring world. But here now. And from there, I was the videographer, started there as videographer, went social media manager, marketing, and now I head up, I'm called the director of product, heading up any revenue generating initiatives on that side. So up here in Cleveland right now, but I'll be bouncing back and forth between here and Scottsdale where we're building our headquarters.
Awesome. Welcome, Alec. And Josh.
Yeah, Josh Lavallee, originally from just outside Los Angeles, California. Just moved in the midst of the pandemic to Pittsburgh in June. I am in the transition period right now of becoming the manager of photography and creative content with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Originally came in as a content creator. Everything kind of pandemic happened, things got moved around, and now I'm in this position. So happy to be here. Honestly, love this city. I think it's probably a perfect fit for me. But prior to that, I was a freelance photographer and content creator for the better part of 8 years in LA. Actually, I've had a chance to work with Matt on a couple of different things, communicate with Alec prior to that about Momentum stuff, but excited to hear about Point Park. I don't know much about all the universities and stuff that's in here, so it's excited to hear from all you guys and talk.
Awesome. Welcome all. So yeah, we have an awesome panel topic today. Today we're going to be talking about, how to amplify your personal brand to land the job. It's a very important topic that's relevant for this industry. So the three topics we'll kind of talk about the subcategory of that main focus really is going to be the importance of your personal brand, your brand as it relates to social media, and really the difference between connecting to connect and connecting to learn. So those are really just some of the three subcategories we'll cover today. The first one I really wanted to start off with is the importance of your personal brand. So what does that mean? Really, let's start off with this. Is it open to any of the panelists up here today? So why is it important to maintain you and your identity really when you're entering this job industry?
I can take it, Matt, if that's all right. Really start.
Yep.
To me, I think that's first of all, thanks for having us. I think this is going to be an awesome panel. But starting off with this, I think it's most important. It kind of sets the base for the other topics we're talking about as well. Your personal brand, I think, is so important. And I think a lot of people just kind of overuse the word brand, and it's just like, oh, brand this, brand that. And, it has to mean something to you. And I think the thing I share with my students and I share with, friends, family, anybody is when you're getting hired, that employer should understand that they're hiring you as a person. They're not necessarily just hiring what's on your resume. And that's something that, when we're hiring at Momentum or just in general, when helping people on their resumes, that's what I tell them. And we can get into a little bit later, but when you're building out your resume, making sure that it shows who you are and making sure your social media and the other kind of access points into your life are showcasing who you truly are. Because the last thing you want is an employer taking that chance, hiring you, and then showing up and you're a completely different person. And it might not be good, it might not be bad, but they really want to see who you are. And when you're showcasing that in your resume, you're showcasing that in your interview, you show up that day and they understand who they're getting. And that's where it should be a good fit. And that's why people always say, make sure you're interviewing your employer, potential employer as well. So, kind of sum that all up by just making sure you're keeping true to yourself and understanding that, when an employer is looking, they're looking to employ that person, not just your resume.
Yeah, I think going off of that, the biggest thing is just like less of looking at what you are and like what you're putting out there as like a brand, and more so just being genuine to who you are and what you want to be doing, and just being as upfront and open with you can from the start. With my Twitter and like social media, like that's how I've landed all my jobs. And just, I think through that, it's just being super genuine and being able to just be vocal on the things that you're passionate about, and people will notice and people will be able to recognize that later down the line when you either need help finding a job or you are in a job and your VP needs to know who you are and stuff like that.
I'd also say it's kind of the old adage of like, you dress for the job that you're trying to land. In terms of me, like I wanted to be in baseball. And so a lot of the things I ended up posting or sharing and on my personal social media accounts was baseball related. So it kind of already gives them the like blueprint of what they're actually going to hire you for. So for me, it was kind of like that. It was also developing, the relationships off the field. I know we're kind of getting into something else, Matt, sorry. But I think just you post or like share the things that are important to you, and you kind of post for the job that you want or are looking for. So like I said, my point, post baseball, I now work for the Pirates. It's not that easy, but it's somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah, I think each of the panelists brought some great points there. Just kind of going along that, really piggybacking off that topic, how important is it for you to really post your work and really to build up your portfolio at a young age, and really just kind of be a sponge, coming out of college, because we constantly learn in our positions today. So how important is it for you to really focus in on, posting your work and really being open to constructive criticism early on in your career?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I only really started sharing my personal photography about 6 years ago, I think. Someone I was interviewing actually called me out for that the other day. But I think it's less of starting from an early age and doing it super young, because like I've been doing this since I was 14, but my portfolio doesn't like technically show that. I think the soonest you can get involved and start sharing and start interacting and like creating meaningful connections within the industry, I think that is like, as soon as you can do that, absolutely start doing that. I know not everyone wants to be a photographer or a graphic designer, so the means in which you're posting and sharing will be a little bit different. But if you are interested in those fields, like always share your things, always tag the teams, tag the players, like follow the people that run those social media accounts, like genuinely get to know them, so that way they know and like can put a face to your work and know to think of you if they ever needed something.
I kind of come from old school, new school. So I still, to this day, will still go look at staff directories and find people's emails. And, I'm not afraid to, put my name out there. Bottom line is they're going to be like, who is this person? I need to figure out who this is. So when you're posting your work, like Emilee said, yeah, tag all those people. Yes, follow all those people and things like that. But sometimes, you can take the extra step and really kind of this way you get in front of them. You got to think about it. You have this big pot of people who are creatives who are trying to get in front of the one person who's going to hire them. And the more times that you can touch base with them from any kind of connectivity realm, whether it be email, phone call, Instagram, DM, like whatever the case is, don't overdo it, but still like make sure to be the kind of that squeaky wheel. And truthfully, that's kind of how I landed my job here. Was my boss Terry Rogers, he was director of social media. I had worked with him because I did RTC, but now it's LCC with Major League Baseball, which I know Emilee was in. I was in the first or second class of that, and I knew Terry from then and just kept his name in my Rolodex. And when I was like, yeah, I want a full-time job, I emailed him. Timing was right. Bang, everything kind of happens for a reason. So just constantly post your work, constantly keep yourself in touch with everybody and tag everybody. Like Emilee said, you'll get noticed that way, whether it's from the player or from the team itself. So kind of figure your balance out.
Yeah, I mean, Emilee and Josh both bring up great points. And I think without belaboring both of the things they've said, I think to me, the biggest thing is, honestly, I forget who said it to me, but it's the kind of the phrase, you never know what rooms your name is in. And I think it's really important to understand that. And while it's a little bit terrifying when you think about like, oh, people could be talking about you behind your back. The biggest thing for me is, even as the employer, I try to look at it from that way too, is when you're posting your work, you're showing off what you're doing, and not in a necessarily like an arrogant way or anything, but you're proud of what you're doing. There are people who follow you. There are people who might not be following you, who are kind of understanding your path and watching your growth. And especially with freelancers we worked with at Momentum, there's people where I followed them and I never really even interacted. And then all of a sudden we needed something. And I think the one, some of you guys might know them, at least the panelists, is Alex Geiger, who works at Pitt. And I've been following him for a while and watched how amazing his work was. And then when the time came, we had a project, and I was like, I know exactly who could do this. And wouldn't you know, he's been working on that project for a few months now, kind of continuously. And it's those types of conversations, it's those types of kind of understandings of the industry, that there are going to be people watching what you're posting, watching what you're doing, and not necessarily as like an analytical way. And I think what we've seen is, if you look at like recruiting, if you went to play sport in college, they're always like, watch what you post, because a coach might not recruit you because of that. And I think that while that works for that, it's not necessarily, no one's watching you super analytically, at least in my experience. When you're creative and posting things, it's more about, oh, I wonder if I could ever work with them on that project, or they seem really awesome to work with. I love their style. Let's reach out to them when we have that project. So to me, I think it's just keeping up to date and making sure, again, showing off who you are and what you like to do. Like Josh and Emilee both pointed out, posting your work and things you're proud of, people really like it. And at the end of the day, especially the sports community is so incredibly supportive. You'll run into some bad apples throughout the way, but everyone just loves to see each other's work. And I think that's, the most inspiring part about working in sports.
Yeah, I think you guys and Emilee, you guys brought really good points there. Going beyond posting your work, just on social media, how do you really gather all your work and put it into a personal website and portfolio? How does that really go into building out your personal brand? You can post your work, singularly, posting a project, but at the end of the day, how do you really build that portfolio out?
Are you asking like websites that we use it to host, or like?
Yeah. So yeah.
Like,
So when you're starting out, how important is it to really consolidate all of your work into a website, so when you're applying to a job, it's easy and it's resourceful for employers to find your work and you're discoverable?
Yeah, so I mean, when I was at Point Park, we actually had a class. It was like a senior capstone class that we had to do resume building and also website building. And I was already working in the industry at the time, so I had a lot of my stuff kind of like already just like hanging out on my desktop. And that's kind of just how I've kept up with my portfolio. So I kind of just, every time I know, like if I'm shooting a game and I know I like X amount of shots, I'll just save those into like a folder in my desktop and know that every couple of weeks I need to just dump those all into my portfolio. But after games, if I know I like something, it normally just goes right up on Instagram after the team uses it. But yeah, I think it was really helpful for me at Point Park having the portfolio class, because it gets in front of your peers, it gets in front of your teachers, and you're all able to like critique it and learn how to like take that constructive criticism and extend that portfolio and just like keep growing from it.
One thing, since I'm kind of out of content creation, so Emilee and Josh could definitely continue that conversation. I think when you're building your portfolio, no matter where it is, so whether that's Instagram, Behance, wherever, you want to make sure it's simple and easy to navigate. I think it is above all else, because we've had people apply and they submit their resume and their portfolio, and I click their website and I'm like, I don't know what you do. I don't know where this is from. Did you work on, just the logo, or did you work on the entire graphic? Did you work on just photo and video? So I think the biggest thing is just making sure whether it's labeled, if it's on a website, make sure it's easy to navigate. If it's on Instagram, making sure that, you can put whatever caption, but I think something that's always helped us is maybe you add in on a comment or something like, this is what I worked on, or maybe make a highlight or something like that. Because the hardest thing for us is, you want the employer to do the least amount of work as possible when they're trying to see what you do, because it's a very quick attention span. And I think there's a couple questions that Matt, you sent over, we can get into later, but you have to make that impression quick. And if you're on that website and you're lost, or it's not working correctly or something like that, it's very tough. And don't go look at my portfolio, because I need to take my own advice. I haven't updated it in probably a year plus. But do as I say, not as I do. But making sure it's easy to navigate and very simple to understand, I think is a huge part, no matter where it's hosted.
It's the modern day business card. That's what it is. It's just facts. Like website, Instagram, all the things that you're trying to put on there is, again, I'll say it again. It's like you're dressing for the job you want, So you have to make it, as like Alex said, as simple as possible for anybody to navigate. That when they go there, the first thing they see is exactly who you are and exactly what you're coming to the job for. Period. Same thing with Alec. I mean, I landed the job. I was like, do I really need a portfolio right now? No, I haven't really done anything with it. But again, like the Instagram and your social media channels kind of act as that. But when you're putting it down on resume and you have to deal with HR, it's just reality. You have to check the boxes for HR too, so that HR knows, you graduated from this school, or you have this much experience that they're looking for, whatever the case is, that when they do go and look at who you are, they pass the first test. So it's a little bit of a game in that sense too. But as long as you keep everything up to date, and truly, like in terms of content, like what should be on it, for me, it's like whatever like strikes me as the best photo or best video or whatever, like put it on there, but try and diversify as much as you can. Show your quiet moments in sports, or quiet moments in whatever you're shooting. Obviously you're going to put action all the time, everything, but when you're coming for a job like myself, or now what Emilee has with team photographer stuff, it's a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that they have to trust you with, you being in quiet spaces and being allowed in rooms and places that not a lot of people get to go to. So, it all kind of comes full circle, but make sure to keep your portfolio up, keep your business card handy in a way, and you guys will be okay.
I think going back a little bit. Sorry. I was just going to say that going back a little bit, I think that along with like being active on social media and like being authentic to who you are, it's really important to have your portfolios, if you're doing content creation stuff, linked to those socials. So like Alex said, like if he doesn't know someone, but he sees someone's work in his timeline that he really likes, being able to click on his profile and link automatically to that person's portfolio and show like his boss or whoever, like, hey, this is why we need to hire this dude. Like, this is where he's been, this is what he's been doing. I think that's really important. And it goes along with like making your stuff accessible and making it really easy, because no one wants to go on a deep dive to like prove why they want you.
Yeah, exactly my point too. And I think even just speaking outside of actual content creation, because I know there'll probably be people in here who won't be photographer, videographer, graphic designer. What I'm doing now is more about brand partnerships and merchandise and selling, and it's much more of a sales driven role. And it's a lot harder to quantify or even showcase what you do. So granted, it'll be a little bit different for the deliverables when you're applying for jobs in this realm, but it's the same kind of concept. You want to have that central place. So when, whether it's just a Google sheet that you have on your own that you're tracking. So for example, I track all the deals that I get done with who that contact was when I'm actually, working on a brand partnership or something like that. And that is my portfolio. So when I am talking to, in the future, if I would be in an interview or talking with someone, I can say, well, I did, X amount of thousands of dollars of deals this year with these different companies. And that becomes your portfolio, when you're outside of the content creation world. So, you want to have that sort of that quick overview, sort of resume complement when you are applying for jobs, talking with professionals or any things, because you want to make sure that you have it quantified and you have your quality showcased as well.
Yeah, I think all the panelists definitely hit the nail on the head there. We started to bleed into this next topic, but really just the power of social media and just the importance of it as it relates to your personal brand. What are the the do's and don'ts of social media as it pertains to your personal brand, because we all know how powerful of a tool social media can be, and you really have to watch what you post. So how effective is it for you to really showcase who you are as a professional and how that translates into social media?
I can go. I like to think I'm relatively passionate about this specific topic, and it doesn't come with its own kind of learning on the fly as well. To me, I'm always someone who, like, I try to do the professional and personal kind of social media accounts, and to be honest, I'm just too lazy to monitor more than those, outside of my job. So I just converted my personal into everything, and I think that's not going to be for everyone. Not everyone feels comfortable doing that, and that's totally fine. But as powerful as social media is, it can be like just as powerful to kind of take you down, and that's something we've seen probably more than ever in the last few years. So just making sure, I guess, I'm never going to be one, and whether if I ever run my own business or I'm manager of all these employees, I'm never going to be one who's like, don't post that. I just want to kind of reiterate the fact, if you're posting it, you better have a reason to defend it or be able to be proud of what you're posting, because regardless of what you do, you're going to, not everyone's going to agree with it. Not everyone's going to love what you're posting. But to me, it's whether it's political, whether it's sports, whether it's anything, someone's going to eventually challenge you on it. And if that's in the professional atmosphere, you need to be able to be proud of that and make sure that that's part of your entire personality, because it's very easy. You don't want to go down. You don't want to be taken down on something you don't believe in. And I think that's something that it's very easy to just not post something controversial, and that's totally fine. And if you feel more comfortable doing that, but if you are going to post something controversial, I think you just need to be able to be, committed to that and understand that it's out there and that you probably will be questioned or challenged by it eventually.
I think going off of that a little bit, especially with the last year that we had and everyone having opinions on everything and a lot of things needing to be talked about, a lot of it can be like, share those opinions, be vocal on everything you're passionate about, but just know like your employers are seeing that. And if people will not hire you if they disagree with what you're saying. And it's the harsh reality of it. But like, luckily, there are also a lot of places now that are looking into people that have those personal brands and like have that voice on the internet. So like when I started with Washington, I got there and my VP was like, don't stop tweeting, keep doing this. Like, we need you to have this voice, not only within this organization, but within like the community that we work in. And so like, kind of like a lot of pressure for me a little bit, I feel like, but at previous jobs, I was often like, they were like, hey, like, careful what you're saying. Like, you're an extension of us, like, couldn't go on podcasts without like signing like stuff with PR to make sure that like what I was going to say is okay. But like where I am here, they're like, no, we want you to say like everything you're feeling, because with where the organization is going, like, we feel like that's where the future is. And with us being like, I hate to say this, but like micro influencers of the teams that we work for, especially working in like the content side of it and being as close to the team as we are, like Josh and I are at least. And I mean, Alec, you're close to Trevor and all them. So, but I think a lot of it is be vocal, be passionate about these things, but also just know that you are also now seen as an extension of the team that you work for once you are hired. And prior to that, employers are looking at your stuff as, hey, this person is potentially going to be an extension of our brand also.
One thing sorry, Josh, I didn't mean to cut you off, but Emilee, I think brings up a great point. And I think in addition to you kind of showcasing, you're the extension of that brand or team, something that and being completely transparent is, if you know Trevor Bauer, he's arguably the most controversial player in baseball and polarizing. It helps establish you and people understand who you are, and understand that you're not just who you work for. You're not just who the company is. And I think that to me is the most important part about maintaining your personal brand on social, is you keep that core of like, people know who you are and they're not equating, if you're kind of silent or something like that, they might equate what your employer is doing with what you're doing. And I think that to me has been something that has been showcased in the last year, especially for my own being.
I am almost the complete opposite of those two. I kind of keep my opinions to myself on stuff, and that's just how it works with me. A lot of my stuff that I end up posting is like, if it's personal, it's happy stuff. Like I went golfing yesterday. Like that's what I posted, like stuff like that. I like, stuff I'm interested in. And that's not to say that I'm not interested in any of the important things. I just like to have those conversations in private with the people that they might affect. Perfect example is Josh Bell was here last year. Big thing happening with Player Alliance in baseball and social injustice, and having those conversations privately with him on different things and whatnot. But like the other two said, like it is important to have those things out there and continue to be those voices of things, especially with your personal brand, and stand up for things that you believe in and things like that. I just have taken the other route, is that I've just been in the conversations quietly, like I said, and just done my own thing. But for the most part, for me with personal brand stuff, I usually post, if I'm at an event or whatever I'm shooting, I post about it. Hey, I'm shooting, the Pirates spring training game. I'm in Sarasota today, like whatever the case is. So it kind of also keeps a timeline of like where you are and what you're doing, so that when your employers do go back and follow you, or they do their research or whatever the case is, they'd be like, oh, he's working every day, or she's working every day. And like you're putting in the hustle, especially when you're a freelancer like myself was for 8 years. It was what's Josh up to? Where is he working today? Like, who is he working for? And I keep putting names on the board, like working for the Seattle Sounders when they're in town, working for the Chicago Fire when they're in town, working for the LA Dodgers, working for the Padres, like whatever the case is. Like that's how I built my personal brand, was like, dang, Josh just busts his ass and like works hard and finds as many jobs as he possibly can and just wants to be there all the time. So that part of things kind of worked really well for me, especially with landing this job, that no one questioned whether I would work hard at it or whatever the case is. And that's probably the case for 99% of everybody who gets an opportunity. But I kind of ingrained that already in terms of like what you saw on my social channels, was just like, dang, Josh is everywhere. Like that's kind of the thing. So for me, that's what I did. That's what's worked. And then converting that into like my like working brand or whatever the case was that he's going to work hard, but also he's a pleasure to work with. And I think that's the biggest thing, that like you need to make sure that your personal brand goes along with that. And that's a big learning curve that I came in with a huge chip on my shoulder for like 3 years and didn't learn that right away, and thought I was, hot shit, and like, excuse my language, but like I thought I was like, hot stuff on everything. And it didn't really matter so much of like what the work was. It did, landing there, getting there, but it really mattered more about what my brand was, about how I worked with others. So how you are able to cultivate people around you and just work really well with everybody. Like people are going to hire you nonstop if you are a pleasure to work with, bottom line. So
I think too, just to add on to that, Josh, personal brand, it's exactly what the words say it is. It's however you make it. And I think, just even hearing Emilee, myself, and Josh speak, we have 3 very different kind of online brands or personal brands, and that's exactly what it's supposed to be. And I think the hardest thing you see is people try to put everyone in a box and be like, well, this is how you build your social following, this is how you have your brand. But in reality, everyone has a different success in terms of their brand. Everyone has a different path. So like we've all said, it's just showing off who you are, and whatever that may be. If you like to have conversations in person and in private versus if you want to have conversations out loud, that's totally up to you, but that's what makes you you. And I think your personal brand needs to showcase that, because again, what I said at the beginning was, you don't want to show up on day one of your job and people are like, who the hell is this person? This is not anyone we just interviewed or read the resume or look at their social channels. You want that to be consistent throughout.
Yeah, I think the panelists have really covered that topic well. We'll dive a little bit deeper into that in the next topic. But to round up social media, there's so many different forms of social media coming out each and every day. As a young professional, where do you really focus on to grow your personal brands? And what have you seen in the last year that's been some forms of social media that you're looking into when you're looking to hire the next young star?
I'll go for me because we just went through an internship process. So mainly for us, honestly, it was more so like we already had a consensus of like who we saw who were available, things like that. But you dive in deeper when you do go into those, especially with Instagram in terms of photography and content creation. Twitter definitely is another one. We wanted somebody also with TikTok experience, working in those forms of things. I am not good in TikTok at all. I am very honest about that. I leave that to Caitlin, who's our social media coordinator. Like, that's her thing. But we did want somebody like that who could work with both myself in terms of content stuff, but also with Caitlin. So I think those are the three big channels for us. Obviously, YouTube is another big way to put your name out there and like start doing vlogs and things like that. From that aspect of things, it's a little bit dicier when you get into that because of copyright infractions and restrictions and things like that. But definitely Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, I think, is still the big three for us right now.
I think, yeah, like exactly what Josh said, those are definitely the big three that everyone's going to be looking at. For me, building my own, I think I always focused on Twitter a little bit more just because it was so much easier to have those meaningful conversations with everyone in the industry. Instagram was great to share stuff, but I always kind of used it as more of like a mini portfolio or like an extension of my portfolio. I'm starting to get into it a little bit more, but Twitter, I always found it was so much easier to have like authentic conversations with other industry professionals, and to like, it's easier to have your work boosted on Twitter as well. So Instagram, you can share stuff, but really only the people that follow you are going to be the ones seeing it. Whereas Twitter, you put it and someone that you know that works out in LA could share it, and there you go. It's like a whole new map of people that it's going to be exposed to. For us, we're really starting to look into, this isn't really like for hiring, but like the team itself, we're starting to look a lot more into YouTube just because there's a ton of money to be made in YouTube. And shout out to Alec, we have been looking at your guys' YouTube thumbnails like crazy. So if any of ours start to look like them, it's because I'm making them. But YouTube's definitely a lot we're exploring, and we're starting to look into Clubhouse a lot too. Their teams, the NFL won't really let teams make brand accounts on there yet, but I think it'll be really interesting once we get into season to start potentially having these like live podcast types things with fans.
First off, thanks, Emilee. We're very proud of our revamped YouTube strategy. But no, I think exactly what they're saying. Again, to me, Twitter has been my biggest thing. If you haven't guessed already from this panel, I like to talk and talk a lot. So Twitter is natural. It was able to share my thoughts. It was able to share kind of things off the cuff, and it felt like it was the least produced, in my opinion. With Instagram, I'll post on Instagram and things like that, but it's kind of up to you, whatever you feel most comfortable. If you're very visual and you like to share a lot of your visual work, Instagram's got to be your place, even though Twitter has best resolution for photo, but I digress. However, if you're trying to have those conversations, if you're very, you're a speaker, you're more of an extrovert, Twitter might be that option for you, because you're able to use those thoughts and actually make them concise, and it forces you to really contribute a very kind of calculated conversation. But again, when we're looking on the hiring side, the first ones are Twitter and Instagram that we're looking at. It's just kind of natural. But with YouTube, it's very interesting because it's one place that we've seen it's almost like it's its own world, where a lot of YouTubers, yes, they're bigger on other social media channels, but look at the Paul brothers. I know they're a terrible example, but everyone knows them from YouTube. It's not like you know them from Instagram or Twitter. You know them from YouTube. And I think that's what's so unique. YouTube is its own creative community, and people on the other channels who might not be big into YouTube might not know who they are. So that's one we're very much looking into and trying to really lean into as a brand, because it's very viable. And as Emilee said, there is a metric ton of money to be made, especially without going too deep. There's so many tiers and levels of ad revenue you can make. It's definitely the place to be to capitalize and monetize your online brand. So whether that's personal, company, or whatever, you have to create what's most genuine and authentic to you or your brand. There's no one way. You need to be on Instagram, you need to be on Twitter, you need to be on YouTube. If you love to make videos and you like to talk, then Twitter and YouTube are probably your best options. If you like to post pictures and you like to, have really cool designs and things, Instagram is probably your best option. So whatever you want to do is going to be the best. And the last thing I'll say is, people who might not be in the content creation side, might be on sports business or sports marketing side. Twitter is going to be that option because it's very much about your thoughts, feelings, and understandings. So when you are in sports marketing, I think marketing Twitter gets a little bit of a weird rap for those who are inside of it. But there are some really genuine people giving out some really genuine advice, and just conversations are really awesome. Can really cultivate a really cool community there.
Yeah, those are great points. I really just want to emphasize the power of social media. We'll just keep this brief, but how many of our panelists have landed a job off of social media?
I've gotten every single one of my professional jobs through Twitter.
Yeah, and my specialty is Instagram DM, man. Every day, all day. Doesn't matter who it is. Like, you have a question to ask, if you don't know how to do something and you're like, hey, I'm interested in doing this, like, ask the question. Like, we're up here talking about ourselves because at the end of the day, everybody likes talking about themselves. So if you can get other people talking about themselves, and they're going to be an open book to you and tell you exactly how they did it and why they did it, and you can learn all from that. As long as you present it correctly, that like, hey, I'm coming to you with like, I have a question on how you did that because I'd like to try and do that. Whatever the case is, they're gonna spill their guts. So my big thing is like the power for me, with Matt talking about like landing jobs and things, Instagram was my way to do that. So that, and then obviously Matt being able to have created a pretty cool community of different things that are jobs posting there all the time and different things like that. That landed me a couple too, but just I'm a big component of being squeaky wheel, man. Doesn't matter what it is, like ask questions, comment, like, share, anything. People will notice it, especially the people you want to notice it.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I'd like to say I landed my job directly off Twitter or something, I wish I could, but I actually sent a cold email, which was pretty wild of me. I was actually sitting in my MBA class, was not paying attention in the back. So don't, again, do as I say, not as I do. But it was actually because I saw stuff coming through on Momentum's original kind of channels and stuff. I got the email, sent the email, explained who I was. But now, when I'm hiring freelancers, I'm hiring people, I'm kind of on the other side where I'm getting them in Instagram DMs, I'm getting them in Twitter DMs, Matt's Slack channel, those types of things. And Josh, I could not agree with you more, I think. But make sure when you are reaching out, you give the person on the other side something to go off of. I think the worst DMs and the worst emails and things we get is like, hey, I'm Alec and I'm pretty good. And then that's it. And you're like, great. Like, what, do you need anything from me? Or did you just want to like say who you were? So I think, you want to make sure, tell them who you are, tell them why you're reaching out, and tell them what you want to do. Whether that's a DM or an email, it can be various forms of formal, but that's the biggest thing. Give someone on the other side an action item, because then they're more motivated to respond or kind of move forward rather than just saying, hey, I'm pretty cool, thanks. And you just don't ever do anything with it.
Yeah, key takeaway is respectfully slide into the DMs and do it with a purpose. But that kind of bleeds into our next topic here is, so really let's talk about the difference between connecting to connect and connecting to learn. I think there's really misperception out there of how you network effectively. We have about 5 minutes on this topic. So kind of just go over some of the do's and the don'ts as it pertains to that.
Yeah, I can jump quickly, but I think the biggest thing to me is just, you have to have a reason to connect. I think one reason I have such a resentment towards like LinkedIn, and I'm sorry if anyone is a LinkedIn stan in here, but it just feels very fake to me. And a lot of the connections are just like, hey, we connected, great. I'll never see it again. To me, I think there's a difference between following people and just liking things and whatever. But if you're truly trying to connect or have that conversation, again, you want to give them a reason to want to connect back with you. And I get Momentum gets it, I get it, whatever, DMs where they're just like, hey, love your work. And then it's like, thanks, I appreciate it. And that's it. And then, that's not the connection. Yes, you're following each other, you've responded, but the connection is, asking them questions, or just like, even, if, we're all from Pittsburgh or connected to Pittsburgh somehow, like, hey, I'm from Pittsburgh, like really have loved following you for a while. I'd love to catch up if you're ever in town, or things like that. It's so easy now, especially with everyone so virtual. You have to give them a reason to want to connect back with you. And that's not necessarily like, well, everyone's kind of arrogant and out for themselves. It's just, just human nature. You have to see that there's a benefit coming out of it, whether it's just a friendship or professional, either way, just you give a reason to hear that connection back.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing going into that is when you're reaching out to people, like I said, like be authentic, be genuine, like want to actually know who they are and what they're doing and why they're doing it and how they got there and all that stuff. Don't just be like, hey, the Washington football team posted a graphic design position. Can you put in a good word for me? Or like, what's your boss's number? Can I call? I've literally gotten people being like, hey, what's your boss's number? Like email, I'd love to like reach out because of this position. And like, that's just really not how the industry works. Like if I don't know you and your work personally, I'm not gonna go to my VP and be like, hey, this person's great. We can share connections, but we can't really just give them away. I don't know. I feel like we all worked very hard to get where we are. And a lot of people in these positions want to help and will help if you go about it the right way. Asking people to give you jobs is not really the right way to do it, and pretty much how you get left on red most of the time. But like I said, like message us and you don't have to be like, oh, love your work, all that stuff. You can, if you love it, that's great. But also like, if you genuinely want to know like how we got here and how we're doing what we do, that's when we want to help you. And because that shows that you actually care and you are truly passionate about it.
I think it's pretty simple. Like if you're looking for a job, go to the person that you think is going to be hiring that job. Don't come to us. There's 3 or 4 people typically above us who have much better payroll options than us. That it's above our pay grade. It's not us. So jobs, if you see a job posting and you're like, hey, like would love to find out more information, like absolutely, I'll fill you in, no problem. But if it's coming to us, like Emilee said, and you're trying to go to the next person, like I said, there's an old dog way of doing it. Like going and find staff directory, find the email, send the email about the job, or like drop the email, be like, hey, I put in an application for this. Here's this reason. So I think that's the wrong way to go about it. If we're going yes and no, the right way to go about it is like they said, like you're coming to them, like you have a mutual respect, and you're coming to them with a question, or you're coming with them like, hey, I really like your work. Like I'd love to know more about how you got to where you're at. Like things like that like set up this whole thing to be more of a conversation or like a friendship thing. I can't tell you how many like photography friends I have now that like through Instagram, because I reached out to them and started that conversation. Again, I'm squeaky wheel. I do not stop talking. So everybody, Matt's seen it, I'm sure firsthand, but yeah, I think those are the 2 positive ways to go about it. Is like you're trying to just have a conversation with somebody versus asking them to do something for you. That's where things get weird. So there you go.
One thing I know, Matt, we're running out of time. Just to add on to that, I think we can all speak to like we'll understand, or we understand that something I felt was like I remember the people who never responded to me and kind of big leagued me when I was trying to come up. But I've also on this side where people are reaching out to me. I remember the people who just hit me up when there's a job, or I remember the people who just hit me up when they feel like they can use me as leverage. Whether it's just someone hitting me up, texting me, or DMing me, whenever, just to catch up. The amount of people I've had just 30-minute conversations with because they're a college student looking to get into it, or they're a professional looking to change their job or whatever. Those conversations where I still talk to those people, and some of you guys might know Jimmy Longo. He was someone I reached out to with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and we're still really good friends to this day. And he's taught me so much. So, as much as you remember the people who aren't responding to you, the other people remember the people who are just reaching out to kind of use you for leverage. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're progressing through your career.
But the one thing I'll emphasize, I think the panelists did a great job answering that question, but this community in reality seems really big, but it's so small. Everyone knows everyone. So my biggest piece of advice is connect to build a relationship, because you're never going to know when you're going to need that relationship to come through for you at the end of the day, because you can't be reaching out when you need the job. You need to develop those relationships, and those will pay dividends when you're actually looking for a job, because they're going to go to bat for you because you've maintained that relationship. For me, a quick example is, this past year, I was able to work for the NFL, but I made that connection 2 years prior. So if I didn't make that connection early on, I wouldn't be in the shoes of that opportunity. So we are hitting our 45 minutes mark right now, which is great. But Jillian, I know we have a lot of people on the Zoom today that might have some questions for the panelists. So I do want to throw it back to you and see if any of the students had any questions.
Yeah, so we had some questions submitted prior to the event, but I'll get started with this one, and anyone who wants to answer, jump in. But the first one is, what's the best skill that you have learned from being on the job? So whether it's professional or personal, what's one thing that you've just really taken home with you?
I'll take it. Be a pleasure to work with, period.
Yeah, I think the soft skills that are in this industry are probably the most important thing. If you have a bad attitude and you complain about the work you're doing and you're grumpy all the time, nobody's going to want to work with you. I hate saying this, but I truly stand by it. The work you do is so much less important than who you are as a person. And so many places are hiring people because they like them and they genuinely want them to be around the office every day. And a lot of what we do can be taught. Creativity, I know that's a touchy subject, but you can be taught how to do graphic design and use the programs. You can be taught how to use a camera. You can't be taught how to be an enjoyable person to be around. And when you're doing what we do, you are dealing with a lot of executive level people in an organization. And it's not necessarily about being professional per se, but being enjoyable and not them leaving and being like, wow, what was their problem?
Yeah, it's exactly what they're saying. I mean, just be a good person, I think, is at the end of the day. And as Matt said, how small this industry is. We all probably know a lot of common people who are not a pleasure to work with. And there's a reason that they're, might not be getting those positions that they're looking for. And I think just the soft skills, like Emilee and Josh both said, it's just learn how to communicate and learn that and accept that everybody you work with, one, not everyone's going to like you, and two, not everyone's going to like the how you go about your business, and that's just normal society. So understanding how to work with those people is where you really become that pleasure to work with, and something that I've been working on in my 2 years. And I'll be very transparent. There were people who we've worked with that I didn't very much enjoy their presence, and you just have to understand that there are other people out there, and you have to be able to work with them. And the people, and that's something in my reviews that I've been told is, if you take that extra step to communicate better, to go and be the bigger person per se, and really make it a pleasure to work with and for you, you'll go way further than how much of an expert you might be at videography, graphic design, or photo.
That's great, guys. Thank you. And I guess also to follow up with that is, don't burn bridges with professionals, even if you don't get along with them. So thank you for that. Another question that we had submitted, I know you guys work crazy hours, crazy schedules. How do you handle the work-life balance? And some of your weeks can be 7+ days.
I'll take spring training on this one if anybody lets me do it. Spring training was wake up at 7, to the field at 8, field till 6, edit till 9, go to sleep, do it all over again tomorrow. That's baseball. Is everyone calls it a grind? It's exactly what it is. I didn't get a full season last year, obviously pandemic, all that stuff, but I got enough, and I've been in it long enough to kind of know. But typically on a game day, if it's not a day game, I'm in the office by 10, shoot the game. Game probably ends around, if we're lucky, 11. Otherwise, I probably won't leave here till 2, wake up, do it all over again the next day. Even like during the time when they're not in the or they're not here at PNC, I'm in by 9 and out by 6 typically. So work-life balance is in sports a struggle at times. You very much you're very precious with your weekends that you have off. A lot of it is not doing anything and just recouping. But I can't tell you enough that it's exactly where I want to be at all times, period. Like you have the day-to-day grind and things happen, but when you're actually doing the thing that you want to do and you get the chance to do it for the people that you end up getting to work with, like there's nothing better than that. So I'd do this 10 times over if I had a choice.
Yeah, I started in baseball, and I wasn't here full time in that schedule. Oh man, football is a blessing. It's feels weird still having only one game a week when we're in season. But I think the biggest thing, like Josh said, is we love what we do, and it really doesn't really doesn't affect us right now, that if we're doing it 7 days a week, that we're doing what we love and we're extremely passionate about it. I also think another thing is like valuing your time off and knowing how to send it, and like also setting those boundaries within your organization, because if you take a day off, don't feel like you need to answer your emails and stuff like that, and like actually truly put that stuff away. And if it's the end of the workday and it's not a crisis, which we sometimes have in sports, that doesn't need to be worked on, close your computer, go home, spend the time with your family, spend the time with your friends, spend your time doing nothing if you can, and just like really use that time to rejuvenate. My last thing I'll say on that is get a dog. It just makes life so much better. And that is how I balance my work life with sports.
Yeah, your dog, I've only ever met him on the internet, but he's great. He looks like a blast. But you know, to echo what they're saying, you have to make an effort. And I think, especially in sports, no one's boss, or very few bosses in the industry, will be like, hey, take a couple days off, don't do anything. And that's not because they're bad bosses per se, but it's just not how it'll work. So if you're taking that time, and like Emilee said, making sure that you're valuing your time off, and whether that's recuperating and doing nothing, or going and exploring different places, you have to take that time and create those boundaries. And it's something I'm absolutely abysmal at. And you have to continue to make that effort, because it's never going to be just handed to you. And just, one thing that I always say is just, you have to enjoy what you're doing. And I think, don't kind of let other people's opinions on how much you should or shouldn't be working really affect it. It's up to you. If you love being at the stadium, if you love being at the games or working, and a lot of what we do are also our like favorite hobbies. So if you're a photographer and you also are working as a photographer, if you're going to shoot an extra game or not, that might not feel like work to you. But again, making sure you're making that time. And the thing I heard that kind of changed my life was, if you don't take a break, your body will. And one day you'll probably wake up feeling terrible and being sick and run down, and you have no choice, and your body will take it for you. So again, just make that effort. And don't, it's your own balance. It's not anyone else's work-life balance. So whatever you make it, make sure you keep it.
I'll add one more thing, Julian. I think self-care is probably the most underrated thing in this industry. You need to take time for you. If you can't perform at the best, you need to be able to communicate that. It's so easy to get burnt out in this industry. So you really need to put yourself at the top of the pedestal and really make sure that you're communicating, what you can and can't do. I'll throw it back to you, Julian.
Yeah, and honestly, that kind of segued into my final question for everyone. So what is the best piece of advice that anyone has given you?
I'll start. I don't know if it's like the best advice I've ever been getting, but it's always one that comes back to me. And it's just where there's will, there's a way. If you want something, make it happen and figure that out as you're going. My mom always told me that when I was little, and I credit her that. I know it's not her quote, but I always credit her that for how everything's worked out for me. If there's something you really want and that's where your life needs to take you, then you'll figure it out along the way.
Patience. That's it. Like understanding that for me, it took me 8 years to get here. Would have loved to gotten it, in 2, but there's a lot of things you have to kind of learn throughout it, like whether you're ready for whatever, whether you're ready for it now or ready for it in 8 years. It's kind of patience and timing for me. Like those are the 2 biggest things. Like to go back with you, like not burning a bridge. It took me 8 years to use the contact that I have with the Pirates to get this job. So that's a long time to like work on something. So patience, understanding that everything is supposed to happen when it's supposed to happen, and don't force it. Like just be a pleasure, like we've been talking about, to work with, and doors will open. If you're a good person, to take all the analogies back together, you can be a C+ shooter on a day, but an A+ person, and that person is going to be there every day. So patience, timing, be a good person.
Yeah, for me, it was something my college baseball coach, he always said the acronym FIO, and it was always figure it out. And it was something that we always hated when he'd say it, when we're in the middle of practice and everything, but it is kind of rung true through everything in my life. Is when I first started in creative, I essentially just had no idea. I taught myself everything and I had to figure it out. And then when I got to my job at Momentum, I had to figure it out. And then as I grow through this company, you have to figure it out. And that's, to me, it's kind of echoes the kind of thought process of it's up to you. And, not everyone's gonna be able to help you out, but at the end of the day, you're looking out for yourself and making sure, again, you're making sure you're a good person and making sure that you're a pleasure to work with and making sure you keep a good impression on everyone you work with. Because again, just like Josh said, and Emilee's alluded to it, you have no idea when those connections are going to pop up. And, who knows, for these types of things, in 5 years, I might be looking at a job with the Washington football team or the Pirates, and I might reach out to Emilee or Josh. And Matt and I have talked about different projects we could work on too. So it's those types of things that just make sure. Again, I've always just said, excuse my language, don't be an asshole. That's like the biggest thing I could ever say, is just be a good person and people will really respect you. And whether or not they ever get you a job or they just get a beer with you, either one, it's a success in my book.
One last thing I'll add is, my biggest thing is like, be the best version of you. Everyone has a different journey to where they're going to get into this industry. It's so easy to fall victim of the imposter syndrome. But if you are, dedicated to your own path and you're able to really see it, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and you're going to be able to be successful if you just follow your goals. So that's what I would say.
Well, thank you, everyone. For all of the students out there, this concludes our panel discussion for today. Anyone who is interested in becoming a board member for the Pittsburgh Center for Sports Media and Marketing, please contact me. My email is posted where you registered for the link today. We would love to chat with you, and then I'll pass it on to Matt for closing thoughts.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jillian. I guess, I like to do this a lot of times when I do panels, but to the panelists, what would be like your biggest like takeaway just from today? If you walked away from this panel that you hope a student would be able to walk away with and really remember?
I'll go. And I think to me, I love doing these types of things. I love talking with people who are up and coming in the industry, and up and coming can mean college. It could mean 10 years into the industry, or changing into it. To me, it's something I'm an adjunct professor at Baldwin-Wallace, my alma mater. And I love doing that because I'm giving back and helping them learn to what it is, because at the end of the day, they're going to be my boss at some point, because you want the next generation to be better than you. And I think in sports, you have to kind of, really any industry, you want the people below you or your direct reports or the next generation to be better than who you are, and you want to make it a better place to work, better place to live, and a better place to enjoy your life. So anytime you can give back, it might not be a panel, it might just be having a conversation, responding to a DM, anything like that. That's what always motivates me to keep pushing and to keep moving forward in the industry.
Yeah, I think Alex hit the nail on the head right there. I think the biggest takeaway would be that people in this industry are here, and we do want to help you guys. And if you ever have any questions or you want to just talk shop, like, I'll speak for everyone. You guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but we're all available. We'd love to talk to you guys, like, outside of this. If you guys ever have questions, like, I'm pretty sure all of our social media is our names and we're easily searchable. So I think that's the biggest thing. And another takeaway would just be that being authentic, like, do what you want to do and be passionate about what you're doing, and the world is your oyster. You'll find your way.
I think for me, it's I'm the only one that's in Pittsburgh right now. So if you feel inclined to follow and send me a DM, like, this is kind of my group now. This is my community. So whatever I can do to help, I think that's the biggest next step in my career path on things. Is I really want to be a building block or someone you can lean on for questions, especially here in Pittsburgh, because I don't see me moving anytime soon. Let's put it that way. So if you guys haven't already, I know Ben and Griffin have already sent me DMs. Yeah, I check them while we did this. Or not DMs, but they followed me. But feel free, guys, follow, ask anything. Like, I'm literally like right next door. So yeah, feel free.
Hey, Matt.
Hey,
Yeah,
Tom.
it's Tom McMillan. I just want to jump in at the end. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm co-director of the center. Panelists, thank you so much. I mean, this has been so inspiring, and we appreciate your time. And to the students, my takeaway for you, if you want to get a job in this industry, be like these four. It's right in front of you. I'm in my 60s. I've seen a zillion resumes. I've hired a zillion people. I've not hired a zillion people. This is what you want to be. This is the way you want to present yourself. I mean, kudos to all four of you for doing this, but it's no surprise to me that you're successful in what you're doing. So that's my takeaway for you is see what these guys are doing, follow them, and take in what they said. And just, I wrote down, I was going to talk about some takeaways. I wrote down too many of them, but Josh, the one thing I do just want to add is patience. I was just talking to one of the students from Point Park this morning. It's such a key. When you're young, if it takes 3 or 4 or 8 years to get there, it seems like it's forever. When you're my age and you look back, 8 years, big deal. You have a great 30-year career. It's not going to always happen overnight, but you've had the goal and act like these guys, prepare yourself like these folks, you're going to get there. So thanks again. And by the way, for the panelists, when Matt was in the center, he drove us crazy so much that we said, one day, Desmond, you're going to come back and you're going to run a seminar for us, and that's paying back. So Matt, you've paid the bill.
Well, I'm glad me being a thorn in your side paid off. So that's good.
Matt, can I add one thing to that real fast?
Absolutely.
About patience. The thing that ends up happening is if you don't look at your own work and compare your own self to yourself, and you compare it to everybody else who might be at a different level than you, or might end up getting a job before you are. If you don't just focus on your own work and you focus on everyone else's, that patient thing goes out the window. So you need to sincerely look at yourself only and keep blinders on to what you want to do, and just judge yourself against yourself. You can't do it against anybody else, because I did that when I first started, and you're like, why is this person getting hired? I don't understand. And it will drive you crazy. And that's what happened with me, where I ended up figuring out, okay, it's more about being a pleasure to work with than it is about my work. And like, it took me a little while, but I got there, and like, here I am now and stuff like that. So when you are going through it and you're down in the dumps or whatever, because we've all been there at some point or another, where you're like, what the heck's going on? Judge yourself against yourself. Don't judge yourself against anybody else.
Yeah, we're all on our own timelines. When it's meant to be, it will be. And don't look at other people's careers. Like, I'm only 24, so it looks like I got into this extremely early, but I've been working at this for almost 10 years. I was really lucky to know what I wanted to do when I was in high school. So you can't really compare to other people's paths if you aren't sure what you want yours to be.
Sorry, last thing, and exactly what both of them said. It's so easy to just assume you know everything about someone else's life by following them on social media. You don't know the jobs they haven't gotten, the jobs that they did get, the jobs they hated, just the life experiences. So there's a lot to be said for not comparing yourself, and we all fall victim to it. It's very easy, but if you just kind of keep on keeping on and make sure you stay on your own path, it's something that you don't know what path you're going to take. I mean, hell, I was an accounting major. I went into school wanting to be a neuroscience major. I came out as an accounting major, and now I'm in sports marketing. So you truly have no idea. And in 5 years, I might be running a bar or something. I don't know. But that's the thing you have to kind of keep in perspective, is just making sure that you're on your own path and understanding that whether it was straight to the top or took a bunch of different detours, it's up to you, and make sure that you keep that in perspective.
Yeah, just echoing what Tom said, really appreciative of all the panels taking their time out of their day to speak today. I know I even learned a lot just from moderating. So, I appreciate all of your hard work that you guys put in each and every day. I know the students appreciate it. But yeah, just feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help. We're here to answer any questions anyone has. So definitely appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone today.
Do you have time for one question?
Sure, Chris. Yeah, go ahead, Griffin.
So I discovered that my like for sports media pretty late into the game, and during COVID, and I'm like looking for jobs, but my portfolio I feel is very light. That I've got more strengths in photography and video and in video producing and all these things, but it's not very sports focused right now, just because I haven't had the opportunity to get on the sidelines, get close, and get more build up. So like, I'm wondering what kind of advice you guys can have for finding jobs. I'm confident that the skills I have can transfer over, and like given the opportunities, I could like do very well on a team or production company and all this. But I feel like if I'm applying to these positions, they'll be looking for people that have a bigger sports portfolio.
I can take this because I kind of ended up in the same situation at Point Park. I always knew I wanted to be in sports and that I wanted to do photography, but I didn't quite get involved until my junior year. I think my biggest advice would be to hit up Kevin Taylor at their athletic department and ask him if he can put you on the sidelines for anything. I know that it's COVID, so I don't know what their restrictions and regulations are, but he will gladly let anyone shoot any of the school's games. There, right there is a bunch of portfolio filler. Starting off, like when I applied to my job with the Wizards, all my portfolio was LCC work and shooting for NAIA teams, and it was all Point Park stuff. But being able to shoot for the athletic department teaches you how to shoot for multiple sports, because yes, technically it's all the same, but knowing how to style and time everything is different for every sport that you shoot. So I would definitely get in contact with him. You can tell him I sent you if you want. Kevin's great. Get involved with him. Just shoot as much as you can. It sucks to do it for free, but like I did an internship with him my senior year, and he really just let me shoot everything I want and like help start running their social media stuff. So I think that's probably the easiest, best way to get involved, like through Point Park right now.
I'm gonna give you,
but I'm not a Point Park student, so I don't know how well that
Never mind.
Thank you.
I'm gonna give you guys a big thing that I learned up pretty well, not pretty quick, but I figured out that ended up being a ton of my freelance business, which was don't just look at the home team. The away team has needs, and they usually don't travel somebody. Talk to them, reach out to them, be like, hey, I'm a student here, or like, hey, I live in Pittsburgh, I do this is what I'd love to do for your team. If you guys are willing to like let me get a credential, come and shoot it. It doesn't matter who the team you shoot for, as long as you put it in your portfolio. At the end of the day, when you get to the level that like kind of like we're at, or like I can compare it with Emilee, the team is a representation of your work, but it's not a, sorry, Danny. But it's not a, see people everywhere. But it's not going to like change your reputation of who you shoot for. So shoot for everybody, doesn't matter who it is. If you hit up people on the other team or another place, go for it. Who cares? Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
so, do that.
I think another thing would be don't get caught up in like needing to shoot for the pros first. Like we all started off shooting our little brothers' baseball games and everything, and taking our cameras to high school sporting and games events. So like look at the local schools, look at the people you can reach out to there, and really just ask them if there's anything that you could help with. And if there's not, ask them if you could even come just to shoot for your own good.
Yeah, exactly what they're saying. And I think I was very late to the content game. It was my senior year of college. And again, I wasn't even educated in it. It was something that I took upon myself. And I always like to say that I convinced our sports information director to pay me a work study, and told him that I had this experience. I had nothing. And then I sat in the studio, from like 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. most nights, and just try to learn as much as I could, and then shot everything I could, whether that was the high school teams that were playing at our field, whether that was just walking around with my friends, when one of my friends fostered dogs. So I would just take pictures of them. And it was just starting to learn about yourself, learn about your skills and what you can get better at, because you just don't know what it is. And something that we look for is, yeah, it's great to shoot sports. And if you shot, MLB before, it's great. But, I shot at a Division III school. Emilee was at Point Park, and Josh, I forget if you had mentioned where you went, but still you shoot all these different things, and it's all about the skills. It's all about showcasing what you have. And at the end of the day, I don't care if it's if you make great 8U soccer content, that it just translates. You can start to understand, you can see where those skills can kind of parlay into it. So my best advice is just, if you're into content creation, shoot and create as much as you can, and then post your work, because the biggest thing you can watch, it's really cool to watch people grow kind of in public, at least something that I look at for a lot.
I'd say also don't be afraid to have a diverse portfolio, because as we grow, into our careers, the longer we're in it, it might be to consume with sports, which is fine. But I think what the pandemic has really taught us is that you have to be open-minded. You have to be able to adapt to the situation. So it's okay maybe not to have sports, but take some opportunities outside of sports. I know you're trying to get into sports, so that's a way to diversify your portfolio and be more adaptable to the situation. But don't just get caught up in a situation where you have to have some type of experience. I think a lot of our skill sets in this industry are transferable. So if you're able to use those soft skills, those will really, be transferable into the hard skills and the more creative skill sets that we're looking for.
Thank you.
Do you guys have time for one more question?
I mean, I can. Do the panelists, are you guys good on time? Okay. Yeah, good.
Okay, sounds good. So I kind of already have a brand and I'm looking better how to use it. So on Instagram, since 2016, I've been running the Steelers page on Instagram where I post news, highlights, whatever, pretty much everything Steelers related. And now I'm at 40,000 followers. And now I'm just like, now what? Me and my friends, we started a podcast, a couple of my friends from Point Park. And now I'm just like, now what? I'm looking to turn this into a career because I already have my brand out there. I have my name out there. And I've worked with players in the past. Players have DM'd me. I've DM'd players. It's just I'm looking to turn this into a career and I'm looking to like know where to go. You know what I'm saying?
I think, have you, from that account, like, do people on the account know that you're the one running it? Like, if I click on the Steelers account, would I be like, oh, John's running this account? Like, I know to credit him for it?
Well, no, but people have asked, and for the personal, because I run story things all the time, and people ask, what's your personal? And I'll throw my personal on there, but my personal isn't in my bio or anything. So
I think this is just my idea. I feel like a way that you could like kind of transfer that is like starting to become like the host of the page and being like, letting people know that you're the one doing it, that you're the one behind this, but also like when you're applying to stuff, you can put that on your resume. You can put screenshots of your best engaged posts like on your website and share that stuff. That's all transferable. Also, the Steelers have a social media internship posted right now. I don't know if you've seen that or if that's something you're interested in, but I think stuff like that is all very valuable. And especially if you want to work in social, like show those numbers and show what your engagement rates are and know how to transfer that to what the job would be.
Okay, thank you.
John, there are so many paths you can go, man. So many. Like, you are creating content, you're running a site, you're doing social media, like you got everything you could ever want in those three things right there for your own personal brand. Now, if you're trying to build your own company or your own sustainable thing, I would probably talk with Alec and Matt. I don't work in that world. They have. Matt's running a community. Matt's doing his own freelance stuff. I did my own freelance stuff too, but it was one-to-one myself. Like whatever I made went right into my page, right into my pocket. So it wasn't trying to build a bigger thing than your own income. But I think just for you personally, it's just what you guys as a group are interested in doing with it, whether you just want to keep it news related or you're trying to branch out more and just keep it maybe player focused, like what Momentum's doing, where it's all player driven stuff, but you're just doing it with the Steelers. And like Emilee said, like there's different avenues you can get into, like one guy that I know that probably everybody knows is Ryan Peters, who does pasta on TikTok. That guy communicates with everybody all the time, tries to get everything he can in there in terms of his own personal brand. So reaching out to different things might be the way to go, but like I said, you got the perfect example of things you want to do with Alex and Matt. I'm going to let them take it and I'm going to shut up.
Yeah, John, well, first of all, that's incredible. It's never easy to grow anything, and especially up to 40,000 followers. Something that we went through personally, our experience at Momentum is just figuring out what your brand is. You can have the success, you can have the growth, but you have to figure out why you grew, what your audience was reacting to, what they were responding to, and kind of build that out. Because something that we fell kind of victim to at the beginning was just doing whatever was hot and be like, oh, well, we can do this and we can do this, we can do this. But once you kind of create that, and whether that's on your personal side or whether that's on your Steelers page side, it's figuring out that brand and kind of creating that true brand presence, and understanding that. And if you're looking for kind of growth on your personal side, honestly, consolidating and figuring out what you learned from growing that page and giving that knowledge out there and putting that knowledge out there, because people will really respond to that and they'll be like, oh, that was really cool. This John guy really built this Steelers page and I never even knew that this niche was out there. I didn't know that, that's how you grew, and that's what went into it. Really trying to figure out and put that out there, and kind of, what's it called, like learning in public or growing in public, it is super powerful. But if you want to talk more, feel free to shoot me a DM, and we can talk more offline, just in general about growing your brand. And, I can help, leverage some of my connections as well, if you'd like.
Definitely. I'll definitely reach out to you. Thank you for offering.
Yeah, I'll just keep it short, John. But I would just look, like Emilee said, just look at the analytics. That's going to really, just paint the picture just for some more of your employers on really what's working, and really how you're able to build upon it, those stats. And then just looking to keep a realistic goal, like a short-term goal where you want to be in the next 3 to 5 years. And if it's a long-term future, build that out so that when you have people that you're, talking to this about, you're really able to really showcase that passion, but you're also forward thinking. I think that's going to really pay dividends down in the future for you.
Thank you. I appreciate the advice, and I'm really trying to get this thing going. And I've been doing it for a while now, since 2016. And I knew Point Park was really like kind of the perfect place because it's in downtown Pittsburgh. And I'm trying to get into really the Pittsburgh sports media. I'm a journalism major, so I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to land a job, so I'm very flexible, whether it's on air. I'm very flexible with whatever. I'm just looking to land this into a career opportunity with the Steelers in whichever way. So I really appreciate the advice.
Yep. Everyone working in sports media in Pittsburgh is super friendly and welcoming. Reach out to them, follow them all on Twitter. I'm not there anymore, so I can't really help you much, but reach out to people. Like we said, like make genuine connections with them. Like they will want to help you. And I think that's how my career started. I reached out to the people at the Penguins, and I can easily say that I have my career because of them. So definitely make those connections.
Awesome. Well, I think we went over a little bit on time. I do want to be cognizant to our panelists today. So Jillian, appreciate you, getting the Point Park crew together. Be happy to do this again sometime in the future.
Yep. Thank you everyone again for joining us. I think this concludes our event for today. I think all of the panelists had put in their contact information in the chat, so feel free to get that information before I end the event. Thank you again, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you, everyone.